Things are moving full steam ahead here in Austin. So far, state lawmakers have filed around 7,000 separate pieces of legislation. With so many bills moving through the process, it can be hard to stay on top of things. But TPPF is doing its part to help the public stay informed by asking friends to stop by on occasion and tell us about liberty-minded legislation they're working on to keep Texas moving in the right direction. This is The Layout. I'm Austin Prochko, Deputy Campaign Director for the Next Generation Texas campaign. Today I'm excited to be with Representative Jared Patterson, who joins us from House District 106. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Today we're going to delve into HB 900, otherwise known as the Reader Act. This is a critically important bill for Texas students. So Representative, can you tell us what Reader stands for?
Absolutely. So first off, I'm so excited to be here with you. Thank you for having me. And I'm so excited that Speaker Phelan announced this as one of his priority pieces of legislation for the session. So the Reader Act stands for Removing Explicit and Adult Designated Educational Resources. And really, it just comes about after the last 15 to 16 months of fighting to remove sexually explicit materials from our public schools.
Awesome. So what we're trying to solve then is sexually explicit material. So take us through the bill. How exactly does it do that? How does it work?
Absolutely. So what it does is, number one, for the first time ever, it sets up library standards that at the state level. We've never had that before. We've had curriculum standards, we've had textbook standards, but we've never had library standards. We never thought we had to back when the adults were in charge. We didn't have sexually explicit materials in library, but unfortunately that's 2023 America. So we set these standards. We have a couple of definitions there: sexually explicit materials and then sexually relevant materials. Sexually explicit materials are banned from campuses. Sexually relevant materials would be things like innuendo or maybe gray area subjects that parents would then be empowered to have the right to stop their kids from being able to check out those resources. And then the book vendors, very important piece, book vendors have to rate these books. And if they're found to not rate them appropriately, they go on a banned list and they basically get the death penalty. School districts can no longer buy from these book vendors. So the entire responsibility lies on the book vendors, not the school district, but the book vendor, to accurately rate their materials that they're selling to our schools and making sure that, it's appropriate. And if not, then you can't sell books in Texas.
Awesome. So let's say HB 900 does get passed into law. How do you think the average Texan is going to benefit from this?
Well, number one, we're going to immediately remove sexually explicit materials. Number two, you're going to have a list created at TEA that tells you all of the materials that have been sold into Texas so that you can see if those books have been sold to your school district. You'll know what the materials are. And number three, it empowers parents. It gives them the power to say, my children will not be exposed to some of this other material. Again, not the explicit material, that's going to be banned, but maybe some gray area stuff that you just don't want your kids to have access to. Parents are going to have the right to determine that. So this is a big win for all Texas students and for Texas taxpayers that don't want their dollars going to fund radically sexually explicit materials.
Awesome. As a parent of two young boys, I really appreciate that. Many education leaders are guaranteed to oppose this. They're going to say something on the grounds that it interferes with their ability to teach as they see fit. How would you plan to respond to that kind of objection?
I can appreciate that. What I'll tell you anecdotally from my own experience is that I've met with a lot of teachers who really do support getting these materials out of school. After all, my mom taught school for 38 years. She never would have dreamed that this material would have been in the school that she taught in. But a lot of teachers are sending me items behind the scenes. A lot of parents are sending me items behind the scenes out of fear of repercussions at the school district level from administrators. But the University of Houston did a poll, and more than 70% across racial lines, across religious lines, across the board, over 70% of people said, we don't want these materials in schools and we want these books rated. And so that's a big win for all Texans. And I believe it's something, it's pretty hard to get more than 70% of people to agree on anything. But I think that we've got consensus here. We're going to have bipartisan support on this bill in the Texas House, and I look forward to getting it over to the Senate as quickly as we can.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Representative. I know you touched on this a little bit, but what kind of reactions are you getting from Texans since filing this bill?
Well, I think, I've worked on this issue for so long now. Almost a year and a half has gone by since I first started working on this issue. And at first, I think people couldn't believe that this was even an issue, right? I mean, when we were talking at the early stages about what some of these materials are, I think it was hard for them to understand that, yes, these materials are that bad and they are in our public school system. So once we got past that hurdle, the big question is, why is this even an argument? Why is this even a discussion? Why do we even have to pass a bill on this? But unfortunately, with my battles with my own school district, Frisco Independent School District, who voted recently to keep 2 sexually explicit books on campus, we have to come up with a state solution. And I think people are going to be very, very supportive of it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.